Well, thanks again, guys, for all coming to this event. It's nice that it wasn't blistering cold to get here. So we're talking about loyalty, and back in the day, when we had customers, they would come up and they would sign up to our loyalty programs. They would, immediately start spending lots of money with our businesses, and they'd get to know our brand. And at the end of it all, we all lived happily ever after because of these great loyalty programs, right? Well, maybe not so much, but now, things are a lot more complicated. There's a lot more opportunities for people to click on travel and to join loyalty programs. And a lot of these loyalty programs have a lot of things like they have points and discounts and member savings and all these things that are trying to attract you. But are they actually building loyalty to your brand and to your business? Because simultaneously, they could be just signing up for the other loyalty program, the other retention program. So today we brought a really cool panel together. I would say this is a very broad spectrum here. They're going to give you some really good insights on all different aspects of loyalty. I'm going to have definitely some opportunity at the end of the talk for you guys to have some questions to ask these guys, because I know I'm not going to ask them all. So let's just start off with Sean. Sean just came sort of last minute today. You might have seen in the advertisements that Marana was supposed to be here. Yeah. But actually, no, it's awesome that Sean did come in. He's EVP of Solutions and Innovations at Bond Brand Loyalty. So they work on some pretty big loyalty programs like Cineplex's Scene and Scotiabank. So he's going to be, he does work on travel programs as well, but I think what's going to be neat is that he can kind of bring in some experience on what are the other guys, what are the guys outside of travel doing on the brand loyalty side of things. Then we have David. He's the CEO of Velocia. It's a pretty amazing company. I had to kind of spend a lot of time with him to figure out what the business is, because I think it's fundamentally different. And I'm not going to do it injustice by explaining it myself, but let's just say that he is trying to change your behavior using a loyalty type program on the way you commute to work. So I'll let you dig into that. So we'll just give it a little wet the whistle kind of thing. No, I'll get you. Then we have Anita. She's the director of marketing at Points Travel. Points has been a big partner of us. They've had them on board here before. Anita's been in the business for 10 years now, or in the travel business with companies like Expedia and Hotels.com. Anita confessed to me that she wanted to get out of the industry, but it kept pulling her back in. So that's I think all of us have been in that place. But definitely, it'll be really interesting to hear her perspective on Points' program with airlines and how it works with travelers. And then last but not least is Cara. And Cara's been here all the way from New York. Thanks for coming here to Toronto. We brought some nice weather out for you. So she's with Hotels Tonight, and she's going to jump right into it and talk about their loyalty program perks. And so why don't we just kick off those two slides and jump right in?
Sure. Okay, you guys can hear me? Great. Just to take a quick pulse check, who here has heard of or used Hotel Tonight? Oh my, great. So to give a little bit of context on what we do and who we are, we are relatively more new to the Canadian market, so I do want to give you some context on how we operate. So we are a last-minute booking channel, mobile first. So here's a quick overview of our platform. So we connect you, users, with the best properties in any market that you're going to. And hotels that have rooms to sell, we connect you with them. So if you're booking last minute in Toronto, you just landed, you want to have the best properties to book at, we're going to give you a curated list of just those properties to book at. We are essentially that best friend that you have in any market or in any city that you go to, giving you the best recommendations on where you should stay. And when we talk about what our loyalty program looks like, we have a formal program called HT Perks, which you'll see behind me. And essentially the way that we approach loyalty is in two ways. One is the financial aspect, so the discounts that you're going to get as a loyal booker to Hotel Tonight. And the second is experiential. So essentially, the more that you use us, the more that you will benefit from the platform, because the more that we can figure out about what you like and where you like to stay, the more that we're able to offer that more personalized experience for you as a user. And so HT Perks looks like this. Not only do you get this badged discount when you book, depending on what level of loyalty that you are, but then also when you level up. So if you go to the next slide, when you level up, you're going to get a $30 coupon that's going to go directly into your account, which can then be used for a future booking. So you kind of get that discount in two ways: that discount when you book, and then that leveled up discount as well. If we flip back, just to the previous slide, I just want to show you on the left side here what personalization looks like. We use machine learning to always deliver to you the best hotels for you. So things like daily drop, which is another feature that we have, which is essentially 15 minutes to book a very, very exclusive, great deal of a hotel. That is something that we can bring to you the more that you use the app, and the more that we learn about what your preferences are, what amenities you like, where you like to search, etc. If you have further questions, I'm sure we'll be able to answer them in this panel, but of course, come speak to me afterwards. I'd be happy to chat. Thanks.
So Kara, what got you into Hotel Tonight? Like, what sort of attracted you and made you sort of drew you in on the loyalty side?
For sure. So I've been with the company for about 4 years, and we're about 8 years old. We've got offices San Francisco, New York, London, Berlin, Paris, and Mexico City. And when I started, we had a Toronto office, which is the office that I started, along with a few colleagues. And at that point, what we realized is that someone recently actually used the word cult with Hotel Tonight, that our users really love Hotel Tonight. That it's the only booking app that they use. The loyalty program is very seamless and offers them the discounts that they're looking for and the perks that they're looking for. And so with that, I've now moved, I actually oversee the Chicago market, and what I like to do is make sure that these loyal bookers that we have are being connected with the hotels that they want. And hotels, in turn, want these users, because these are the ones that stay longer. These are the ones that spend more money. And so I'm just very interested in making sure that when users come to Chicago in particular, that they're being connected to hotels that are offering them the perks that they want.
Excellent. David, I cut you off before you were ready to jump in, so please explain to the crowd what you're all about, what Velocia is all about.
Sure. Thanks very much. So Velocia is a loyalty platform focusing on rewarding people for making smart mobility choices. And so really what we're focused on is we want to work with the public sector and the municipalities, and in the private sector with mobility as a service companies, whether it be ride hailing, car sharing, scooter or bike sharing. And really we want to get cars off the roads. And so right now you're seeing, I could probably ask how many people carpool to work every day? Once a week. Exactly, right? So we still have this challenge where, people are saying that the mobility as a service market is going to grow to over $1 trillion by 2030, but you're not seeing that loyalty to the behavior happening, right? You're not seeing people leave their cars at home. You're still experiencing horrible traffic, whether you're on the freeway in Miami or in Detroit or even in Toronto. And so we're looking at how can we incentivize and reward people to create that loyalty, not necessarily to a brand, but to the behaviors, which are smart mobility behaviors about getting cars off the road. And so we have a nice kind of public-private partnership where we work not only with municipalities on the public transit side, but also with mobility as a service providers on the private side.
What got you into it?
So I've been in mobility for, I would say, I've been passionate about mobility for a number of years, but I've been in the space for just over 4 years. This is our third venture, my colleague and I. We started with carpooling. We actually built a carpooling platform called Blanc Ride that we launched during the Pan Am Games in Toronto, and we experienced just that. Great slick app, it was a great idea. If you ask people, would you carpool to get cars off the roads? 99% of people would say yes, but when you actually do it, yeah, no, I don't know if I'm gonna do that, right? And so we kind of had a lot of learnings from there. We then launched a taxi hailing platform called Nexo in Latin America, which is experiencing a lot of successes right now. And we saw this perfect opportunity in terms of where we were as an organization, where the market was, to really look at bringing a solution focused on loyalty and rewards.
So I'm just going to open up a general question to anyone who wants to jump on it. But for what is loyalty to you guys? Is it building a brand? Is it brand engagement? Is it retention? I know this is a broad question, but that's why I'm throwing it out to the best of the group.
Dave, we were debating this earlier. There's a lot of problems with that word. The term for us, the way that we look at it, is about an outcome. It is about kind of a journey to that end. It isn't a loyalty program, though that's a way for you to try and build the same kind of outcome. For us, like the way that we build programs, the way that we design them, et cetera, they're trying to do several of those things, be retention kind of mechanics for a particular business or a brand. But they're trying to do more than that. They're trying to say, we appreciate you. We appreciate that you choose us, especially in highly commoditized industries where that choice is abundant and the difference can be hard to discern. They're trying to build some resiliency in for those brands to say, God forbid if we misstep and we don't recognize you the right way, or maybe we screwed up that treatment, you're going to give us a little bit of grace on it because generally we're pretty good to you and we appreciate your business for that. So these programs are often tasked with a lot of things. Growing frequency in retail, growing basket sizes, creating retention or a form of engagement, which then you can use to breed all of those other outcomes. So the difference between like loyalty and rewards is a mechanic that we use sort of within that sphere, but the term loyalty needs a drastic rebranding to be about the outcome, not the thing itself.
Very cool.
I'd say too that loyalty is very much, the true loyalty is very much integrated in the whole brand experience. And I think that's a very difficult thing to attain today. You think about, like you said, a loyalty program doesn't equal loyalty. What is true loyalty here is when you can get to a stage where your customer are advocates for you. That is the holy grail that we need to get to.
Well, how do you measure that? Do you use a tool to measure whether they're advocates? Is this like a special tool that you use at points?
Well, I think there's a multitude of ways to be able to measure it. I mean, you look at like net promoter scores, you look at retention rates. There's multiple ways to measure it, and I don't think there's one metric that can capture it all.
So, what gets you excited at points these days? What's going on there?
So what gets me excited? Well, I think there's a need for loyalty programs to redefine the experiences that they're providing to their members, and so at Points we're all about bringing greater utility and greater value to these programs. So we get excited about the innovation that we're able to bring to loyalty programs to help them become more meaningful and valuable to their members.
Okay.
Experience is kind of a nice jumping off point because I think when loyalty programs sort of originated, there wasn't a lot of really great ways to gather data on the good, the bad, and the ugly of what your customers experience with your brand. There wasn't a lot of ways to understand their behaviors. Now those things are increasingly kind of baked into the fabric of businesses, and so freeing the notion of all of those mechanics from a straight up formal points-based loyalty program to now be integrated into the way you just do business with brand XYZ is kind of that renaissance or reinvention of what loyalty should be, could be, would be.
So what would you say is the best in industry right now, or outside of the industry for that matter? Like, what's the best program that you would throw down and say, this is the best loyalty program, we should all emulate this?
I like this mobility one. That's a question we get all the time, and the answer isn't simple because it really depends brand by brand. So, we would talk about companies like Restoration Hardware putting a paid program into market at $100. If you've ever, anybody a member of the Restoration Hardware loyalty program? Yeah, people are usually pretty sheepish about putting that hand up.
I'm just on stage.
Here's the
that's all.
buying decision. It's a $7,000 couch, and they're like, we'll give you 25% off if you join this program. And you're like, it's only $100 to join the program. I can do basic arithmetic. This seems like a really good idea. And so you get into a situation with those customers, and I think they're claiming something like 90 to 93% of their customer base are now members, because it's almost impossible to buy something at Restoration Hardware and not be in a favorable position on that arithmetic. And so the part that's genius about it is the thing for Restoration Hardware was returning $7,000 white linen couches into inventory is a profoundly expensive proposition. So if somebody buys it, gets it home and goes, I don't like it, that's really expensive for you as the brand. Bringing them a program, paid in, pre-committed to the tune of only $100, you're gonna get advice. So somebody's gonna come to your home and they're gonna be, it's called consultation, it's not called sales. Consultation says, good choice, that couch looks great. You should totally get the marble table with the brass legs that goes with it, because I'm standing in your house and I'm clocking, that's not from Restoration Hardware, that's not from Restoration Hardware, that room looks like it hasn't been redecorated in 10 years. And literally you're paying for this at $100 a pop. And so the confidence level of you on this couch goes way up. You're like, good choice on the couch. This guy says it was a great choice. And so for them, that's a genius solution, because their business problem was about returns. It wasn't as much about frequency. I don't think it's about basket size at Restoration Hardware. And so for their mechanics, for their business, that's the right way to do something like that.
It's interesting. You're living my life right now. I just bought a couch from there, so so yeah, I'm kind of looking at the coffee table now, and it needs to be upgraded. So
That's how they get you. That's how they get you.
Very good, very good.
But so I would comment, and somewhat related, but I'm also curious from my fellow panelists in terms of their view around this idea of loyalty to a brand and versus kind of more to the ecosystem. And so specifically in the mobility space, what we're finding is less and less loyalty, let's say, to a specific brand. You can use examples of Uber and Lyft and others, but more to say, okay, there's more value if I'm part of this ecosystem, right? Because maybe not every day am I going to car share, but at some point I'm going to car share, and other times I'm going to carpool, and other times I'm going to use bike or scooters and things like that. And for me, it's not about giving you $50 off my service, but creating, a reward or redemption where you're getting points, or however you want to describe it, that can be used across the platform, right? Because the study showed that, the more I can use it across all these modes of mobility, the more likely I'm going to come back at some point when it is time to car share, where I'm doing that drive, to wherever I'm picking up groceries, to use that platform versus, and so versus them saying, let's just focus on a closed loop relationship between customer and myself as brand versus, myself as part of an ecosystem with others in the space. Sometimes competitive, sometimes cooperative, right?
So if you're in this ecosystem and you're a brand as part of that, do you have to be the exclusive brand in that category to be successful, or can you be successful with like brands as well?
Our thesis and our hypothesis, which we're going to prove, come April when we launch in Miami, is to say, no, it's not about exclusivity. It's about the fact that you are in a large enough ecosystem that is open. You're going to be able to differentiate yourself as you want to in terms of whether you're your messaging or your target or your focus. But there is more power in numbers as opposed to saying, use my platform and only get rewarded on my platform, especially in some situations where the frequency of use isn't every single day, right? Where, I'm not going out and, in some situations, and especially in Miami, people aren't even using public transit every day, right? And so how do they kind of balance that? And so that's where it's an interesting discussion where it's around, is it, what's more important, loyalty to brand or loyalty to like an ecosystem that you're a part of?
That frequency of use is an interesting thing for travel, because you think about buying a cup of coffee. That frequency is never going to be the same in travel. You're only going to stay in a hotel room or get on an airplane so many times a year. And so having the ability to provide choice and that instant gratification in travel loyalty programs is inherently harder. And that's where I think that the ability to have a stronger ecosystem and to be able to look at partnerships that maybe extend beyond your category makes that even so much more powerful.
And when you think about like Amazon Prime, how many times do you look at Amazon and you only buy the items that have Prime attached to them? I know I'm going to buy this stuff anyways, but it doesn't necessarily have to be restoration hardware. It could be IKEA, but as long as it's giving me free shipping, I'm good. But there's interesting when you think about whether it's high frequency or low frequency, it's still about choice. So I don't care if it's going to be, well, I care if it's IKEA. I don't want IKEA. But if it's a higher end item and if it's restoration hardware or say Article offering me furniture and they're both offering me free shipping, I mean, at that point they're synonymous to me as long as they're offering the same type of product. But I'm not going to choose. I'm not going to choose the item that doesn't have Prime because of that free shipping. So the choice is very important, especially with millennials, which who isn't targeting millennials, but they like choice.
Prime figured out early on that the currency they were dealing with was free shipping. They didn't need points. The pre-commit of you paying the membership fee predisposes you to check Amazon first. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. They're a clearinghouse for lots of brands, and so you've got that choice there. I think I'm like torn about your question because as like a citizen, I'm like, yeah, man, build that behavior. That's a better behavior for us all. I work for a company that works for brands to build loyalty to those brands. And I believe in that because companies, I think, increasingly they're doing a lot more to service needs. You see companies like extend and extend and extend and change the way that they're trying to like make something easier, make something better, do more for you, give you more back, et cetera. And I think that the choice of mode of transportation within that ecosystem. I look at something like Lyft and Uber. They're trying to put a subscription-based service into market, $400 a month. What they're trying to do is destroy the cost of ownership so that you make a different decision. The reason nobody raised their hands is because you're like, well, the car and the insurance and the gas and blah, 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 and people don't typically do all that math every single month in their heads. And so Lyft comes out and they go, okay, 2 points, A and B, your house and presumably where you're going to work, $400. And you're like, $400? My commute is worth $400? What would I do with all that extra money? And so I think they're systematically trying to, yes, lock you into Lyft, but also take away the idea that car ownership, having access anytime to a vehicle that is yours, is less important than the $500 or $600 or $700 or $800 that you will free up if you take us up on the $400 membership that is between 2 points every single month. So I think there's some neat things in there that is both, working on your cause even while they're getting the brand loyalty out of it.
I don't think it's one or the other, right? Which I think is one of the points you're making. Like I still think that you can do both. And I still think that when I talk to our partners and, part of this is, for them it's customer acquisition, right? So can I acquire customers faster at a more inexpensive way? They're still going to want, them to use their brand or their service. And so, but what I think is thinking ecosystem first and then thinking brand second is a bit of a shift, which we're seeing more and more in terms of getting value from the ecosystem versus just from a closed loop when it comes to loyalty.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit. I'm using that.
Unintended.
Unintended.
Nice.
So what's new and exciting in loyalty? What's out there that's that you guys want to implement or that you see out there that's really that's something that travel companies need to get on board immediately?
Kara?
I'm thinking about what I can say and what I can't say.
This is a circle of trust, so you can.
I think that what's really exciting, especially in Hotel Tonight's space, is our users are into experiences. So it's about making that experience as seamless as possible. So whether it's something that's quite cool is this idea that, once you buy an airline ticket, how does that then start the process of this domino effect of making your entire stay of this trip seamless? So in the hotel space, maybe it's keyless entry or automatic check-in. These are things that we've learned that people don't like spending time doing, and can be, if Hotel Tonight offered it, a tool that would make our platform a lot more attractive in terms of booking that hotel. I mean, we've already got a very loyal following, but how do we take that larger share of the wallet where if they even think about booking with Airbnb or Expedia, hotels.com, how do they choose Hotel Tonight? And is that through this enhanced experience that we can offer guests?
Is it hyper personalized so that you're not offering the same thing to everybody? I like a certain service in a hotel. Someone with a family might want something different.
Exactly, and we work with many hotels, but we specialize in boutique independent properties. Those are the properties that use us the most and love Hotel Tonight and love our guests. And they're more and more asking, how can I offer, other than discounts, how can I offer this personalized experience, whether it's a drink upon check-in, or if we know that the person traveling is pregnant, how do we swap that drink for something else, like something that would make her stay more comfortable, something like that. Is always something that we're thinking about.
Yeah, the experience of that travel ribbon is kind of interesting because a lot of the competition right now is about the booking moment. And what I hear you saying is, well, there's some other stuff a little upstream from booking at the hotel, airline, or something else that is part of that same journey to them. I think most airline loyalty programs, show of hands, who's in some form of airline loyalty program? Okay, how many people are super happy with it? Less. Yeah, that's about right. So I look at sort of the generation of loyalty programs that exist in something like airline, and they seem designed not for me. I do a decent amount of travel, and whether I'm doing it for work or doing it for pleasure, the benefits are things like get on the plane early. I don't want to get on the fucking plane early. I want to get on the plane last. I want to be the last guy on the plane. That's a benefit I care about. They're like, hey, come hang out at the lounge. I'm like, I don't want to hang out at the lounge. I want to spend less time at the airport. And I think what a lot of the travel industry is learning is what Apple started teaching people like a decade ago: take apart the lineup. Anywhere there's a lineup, destroy it. If they have to wait for security, destroy that. If they have to wait for customs, destroy that. If they have to wait to get on the plane, destroy that. Except the lineup to get on the plane now is like 15 different cohorts of like 15 statuses and all kinds of other things. I'm like, is there anybody left who is not in one of these categories? Who else is getting on the plane? I don't understand.
Now boarding zone 17.
So I think what's exciting about now is it feels like we're in a place where the tech is increasingly there, the appetite and the will to change some of those operational things, they're big, real operational things, to be able to provide the kind of experience that any given person wants. I want to get on the plane last. Somebody else might want to get on the plane first. Loyalty programs are updating themselves to allow for that kind of flexibility and evergreen change, as opposed to being like, no, the loyalty program is only one way for all people. That doesn't work anymore. You have to kind of design with permutation and combination in mind.
Yeah, the idea that there's a singular loyalty program that meets the needs of every single member is just not true. It just doesn't exist. There's way too many consumer needs and wants that need to be met. One campaign that we recently launched with Alaska Airlines at the end of last year, we offered the ability for members to pay for status, and so we tested a new ability for them to actually redeem their miles to keep their status, and that had significant uplift in conversion results. And what we found is that there is a unique member base that is more willing to use their miles to keep status than they are to pay cash to keep their status.
And it's good for CPP.
Yes.
Oh, very, very, very interesting. I know with Southwest Airlines, they're doing this companion program, and I thought that was pretty interesting because a New York journalist brought it to my attention. And you basically can, when you're a super elite on this program, your companion travels free. All you have to do is pay taxes and a bit extra. So that's, again, sort of hyper-personalized and all that.
Yeah, I think of the WestJet program too. I mean, ultimate flexibility there and being able to redeem as many dollars as you want for your trip. I think that even though their rewards offering is very singular in that it's just flights, they have great flexibility in how much you want to redeem for.
So should we separate loyalty and retention as two different concepts, or are they intertwined, or is it better just to separate them and look at them as different line items in your budget to execute upon? This is open to all of you guys.
I think at least in my opinion, I think if they are separate, then there's some tweaking that has to be done, because if, for example, a user comes to Hotel Tonight and they have a use case that we're not able to satisfy, whether it's a group of 8 people traveling in a group and they want to get an Airbnb versus a Hotel Tonight, then we need to go back to the drawing board to say, they may be loyal to Hotel Tonight when they have that use case, but in terms of retention, in that particular case, we didn't get that share of their wallet. So how can we then go back to the drawing board to tweak things so that regardless of their use case, they can come to Hotel Tonight for whatever scenario they have?
Regulatory aside, that's probably the Uber allowing you to hail a taxi in the app.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, I'm going to open up some questions to the crowd, and I might throw in some more.
So can I just ask,
Do you want to do that?
what we haven't talked about, which I've noticed a lot, is on the redemption side, right? I find, even with programs that are launching today, you have this redemption program that takes forever to redeem anything, right? So they have this great loyalty program. They offer these great kind of rewards. But yeah, you'll be there for a year before you collect anything, right? And so, and I think some of that is somewhat economical and intended that way in order so that you're constantly using or, coming back to the service or to the product, but not actually obtaining kind of really what the goal is, right? And so that's, I think, one of the, when people sometimes don't raise up their hand saying, am I happy with the program? It's because, when's the last time I got something that was of value?
Does that backfire though after a while? Because eventually you try to redeem and you realize you don't get a lot for it, then you stop wanting to earn points anymore. Go ahead. Yeah, Anita, you can go for it.
Yeah, I mean that is a challenge in travel, right? You want to get on that flight for free with your miles. You've got to put down 50,000 miles, and how long is that going to take for you to get there? So I think one of the great things that what we're doing at Points is we offer products that allow members to really accelerate their earn rates. And so we had, for example, a promotion with Miles and More where we were doubling the miles that we were giving away. So there was one member that earned 440,000 miles in one booking. So we just gave that member 3 round-trip business class flights, like anywhere in the world. And so that ability there, I'd imagine that member is probably super loyal and a super advocate of the Miles of More program.
Kara, I'm on sort of your thread that says, like, this travel ribbon is a lot longer than just the stay at my hotel or necessarily the flight that got me there or whatever. There's a lot of moments that are lower cost to be able to deliver and allow for somebody to feel kind of the fruit of that redemption a lot more frequently. And we know from a bunch of research we've done and data that we've collected out of the programs that we operate that a certain kind of frequency of them feeling kind of the fruit of that labor makes them more satisfied, makes them feel like the program is better. Independent of the full monetary value that they've gotten out of it, there is a prevailing sense that they're like, every time I turn around, it's making this part easier. I get a little something here, I get a little something there, and if I choose to, I can do the sort of saving up for long periods of time in order to have something larger. But the choice to allow for this ride on the way or something else in that travel ribbon to be a version of that redemption is kind of the world that we're going into.
And we want to be justified. Oh, is this on? Can you hear me? Oh, we want to justify our decisions always, right? Like if we don't get a discount, I don't want to book it, or if I don't get some kind of value add, I don't want it. So it's unfortunate because there was a time when we didn't need this justification to do things, but that's the reality of where we are now, and even myself, guilty of it. If a hotel doesn't have HT Perks badging on it, I don't want it, because if I'm not going to level up, I'll be homeless. I'll sleep outside if I don't want to sleep in a hotel if you don't have HT Perks.
That's loyalty.
Yeah.
I'll ask another broad question. You know, let's say you're a tech startup or a company without a loyalty program. What would be sort of the first steps to setting up your own program? Like, what was your thought process, and how would you sort of jump into it to know that you should start in the right foot to craft the right program for your business? Obviously, I'm not going to talk about specific businesses, but just what's the right foot to get onto?
I think one of the things that we would recommend is think about what the right currency, so to speak, for your business is. So there are understood mechanics like points, but that doesn't have to be the only thing that is of value that can be unitized and then given out to users in sort of response to their behavior or their activity with you. So the economics of those things will change from business to business to business, but I would say like one of the first things is just sort of to figure out what your currency is, because it might be something hiding in plain sight, or it might be something that you don't expect it to be because you're just kind of preconditioned to think of the world as a points-based world when it comes to this topic. And increasingly, that is not the case.
Very cool.
I was just going to say, and I think this applies not only to this question, but almost anything you do when it comes to a startup, is know what your KPIs are, right? What is your goal in terms of, it's not just about, do I want more people, using or downloading the app or using the service or product, but there should be key performance indicators saying that I'm either measuring, customer acquisition costs, and I want to see a reduction by X, or I want to see a retention of Y, but know really specifically what the KPIs are and be able to hold the team accountable. Are we achieving that? Are we moving to the right direction? Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of money potentially. You're going to see a lot of results, but I don't know if they're going to be the right results. I don't think is it going to move the needle, or is it going to move the bar? And so that's something that we kind of always go back to on the team, is to say, what are we measuring here, and why are we doing this, and does it add towards that?
Excellent.
And make sure it's as simple as possible. So one of the things, a recent change that we made to the Perks program, which was so obvious, how did we not make this sooner, is when you would level up to a new level and a new level of discounts that you would receive, we would send an email with a code that you would put back into the app. Nobody got the email. Nobody could find their code, and myself included. One of the most frustrating things as an employee, where's my freaking code? So we now, when you level up, it goes immediately into your account. And so that credit is immediately applied. Of course, as a user, I'm more likely, if I wasn't an employee, I'm more likely to go back to Hotel Tonight if I have that cash in my app, in my account, than I would if, some email is floating around somewhere with my $30.
That's a good point. Let's open it up now to the crowd. Any questions? Come on, guys, there's a lot of insight here. They answered everything you had when you came to that. There we go.
Wait for the mic.
Sorry, we're just getting on the mic so then we get you in the recording.
Thanks.
So.
I'm warming up. I'm a big user of Hotel Tonight, and actually the usability and how frequent and how easy and seamless it is makes it that I open the app and it gives it to me, right? Like super instant gratification. I hate points. Will points die? Because it's so not an instant gratification. I think from a millennial point of view, I think it will die. So that's my personal opinion, but what do you guys think?
This is points like points, not points like points. Yeah.
That was super aggressive.
Wow. What else do you hate? No.
I feel like I should answer that one, because yeah, I think that to Sean's earlier point, that there's opportunity for loyalty programs to be creating other forms of currencies. Points is one that's easy, it's measurable, it's easily understood, and I think that where the opportunity for travel programs is to continue to create more utility in the currencies that they provide. Because clearly they're not meeting the needs for you, and there's more opportunity there for them to be able to allow you to do more with them.
So what's interesting about our platform is our point is actually a token on the blockchain. So, and we're not going down the path of cryptocurrency or things like that, but we're looking at, and it's funny though, because when you talk to partners, whether it be in the municipalities or whether it be in the private side, you explain this concept of a token and you get some looks and then you say, it's like a point. And they're like, oh, okay, great, awesome. But I think that, we've got a path to, in our roadmap in terms of a decentralized ecosystem, and we think that there's going to be a lot of value in kind of creating a token-based economy leveraging blockchain. So we're trying to move that towards on the loyalty side.
I think you're not alone in that sentiment. Part of the reason I think that's happening is because a lot of programs have created complexity to manage that anchor currency that is a point, restriction and other things in order to manage kind of the economic impact to them, but it's come at a price of simplicity and understanding and all of those other things. I think, figuring out again, back to like what is the right currency, getting upgraded to a black car when I hailed an Uber X is now a thing. Number of upgrades is now a currency for all intents and purposes. Do I know whether or not there was even an Uber X close by? Hell no. So maybe it's real, maybe it has a real cost, or maybe it's good packaging and marketing that just makes me feel like I got treated differently or appreciated differently or something like that. Those kinds of things in hotels are no exception. They've got a lot of different levers to be able to give you that version of an experience, unitized, recognized, that has nothing to do with kind of an anchor core points program. I will say that like the prevalence of gaming and a bunch of other things in our lives that are just sort of making normal the idea of a point system is a counterbalancing force. So just when some people are fed up with points, a bunch of other people are like, but my whole life has been about understanding the point system, and now I'm looking for that in other categories of my life. And so I think making sure that we design experiences for the future that are malleable enough to be able to account for that kind of difference. Like if you look at, there's a lot of industries that are struggling with this. If you look at your average car right now, there's probably 3 different ways you can change the temperature in the car. There's an LCD screen, there's probably still some knobs or buttons or something underneath that, and then there's probably something on the steering wheel to let you do it a 3rd different way. And so we're stuck in this weird sort of in-between half step where you're still catering to a certain norm while you're trying to build for a new norm, and there's gonna be some kludgy, clumsy things in there that we're gonna have to get through.
Stu.
Hey, so this is a bit of a question and also a bit of a statement. There's one thing that hasn't been mentioned at all here, and that's the fact that the loyalty industry is a multi-hundred-billion-dollar industry that basically is all about delivering value and engagement for members that is tied back to the value of a loyalty point, and that loyalty companies, part of hotels, parts of airlines, are typically worth at least as much, if not more, than the value of the actual operating company that is providing the service. And so I just find it interesting that we're talking about all sorts of really cool things. I agree with everything you're saying about different types of value adds and different types of recognition. All that stuff is extremely important, but loyalty as a thing, loyalty as a currency, and the delta between the issuance of miles and the utility associated with miles is a core of a multi-billion-dollar global industry. I'm just wondering why nobody's mentioned that. I'm
trying to search for the question in there other than how come nobody mentioned it. cue me into sort of like the curiosity behind it, how the economics of it work, the motivation of it, that these things are worth more than the core businesses. Where do you want me to?
No, I guess we've had a great conversation about loyalty and the idea of sort of trying to drive consumer behavior in lots of different ways, and that is all true. But what we haven't talked about, there's been a couple of mentions around it, but we haven't really had a good conversation about the fact that loyalty as an industry or as a space is ultimately about engaging with and delivering value for travelers that is keyed back to a unit of currency, and that there's a lot of money to be made between the dispensing of that currency and the perceived value associated with that currency. And that, at the end of the day, is about what the industry of loyalty is about, as opposed to the fact of loyalty, which is about trying to get people to come back and buy the same thing over and over.
For sure. Okay, so on the first part, the sort of delta between the utility of that currency and the cost to actually deliver that service, I mean, to some degree, there's one avenue of conversation around that it says that's what every brand has tried to create since the beginning of brand. Is this bag of rice any different than this bag of rice? Well, if I ensure the quality is different and I deliver more value that isn't just a bag full of rice, I'm going to be able to charge a premium in the market. I think to some degree, loyalty programs have gotten so entwined with the rest of product and other aspects of the marketing mix that they are a version of that. They are texture to the brand. I think on the sort of size and scale of that's grown to, in Canada anyways, that's I think what's forced a lot of coalitions to do some pretty clumsy things with their currencies. It becomes sort of a big enough thing in their world that they're trying to bring down the liability of those things. And at sometimes it's been to the complexity and lack of simplicity that creates that kind of frustration. So I think that there's a way that brands sort of going into the future make sure that they're balancing out these experiential things, these new currencies of sorts, with the way that they have operated kind of an anchor points-based currency, such that they don't get themselves into situations where they're being forced from a financial perspective to make clumsy decisions that are not in the end service of loyalty of that given customer or member. So I think that's kind of the pivot point that this industry is at.
I would also say that the delta is rising between the actual value and the perceived value, and maybe that's a testament of what was just said. But if I'm booking a flight and it's not United, and I'm a United mileage gal, so I feel like even if I know that 30,000 miles isn't going to get me anything, I still need to book through United to increase that points base, even though there is no there's no perceived value in that. And so that gap is growing, and I would echo the testaments of it has to work if everybody moves from points. Because I mean, I think Porter's done a great job, because one of the benefits that you can do is if you show up, 2 hours before your flight, they'll put you on an earlier flight. I think that's a huge benefit.
They took that away, but
They took that away. No, I did that last month.
if you buy the base ticket now, that's
If the base ticket. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you don't buy the base ticket, but I think that's in essence, I think that's a great idea. And it'll only work though if more, for example, in this case, airlines move towards this. Because if I make that risk of going back to Porter, I've just missed out on my perceived value of United points. But at the end of the day, I'm a dissatisfied customer because I got points that don't really mean much to me, because unless you get the double points where you can get 3 business class flights, a lot of the average flyer doesn't get that. And so I do think that we need that one shift, or that one mover, to make that shift to moving away from points.
In airline in particular, the experiential benefits, like getting you on the earlier flight, literally cost them next to nothing. You are like, that's way more convenient for me. I'm not sitting around here. It's a nice lounge and everything at Porter, but you're not sitting around waiting, which is more valuable to you than the points might be with another airline or something. Those are the kind of currencies that I would encourage, brands in the future to look for. That is a thing that is a win-win. The customer gets what they're after, a better form of experience, while they're not necessarily rising costs in order to deliver it. That is the perfect definition of creating value where otherwise there was none.
Another example of that is Hilton. Their rewards program allows you to select your own room at select properties. And so for someone like me, who I'm a very light sleeper when I travel, I don't want the room by the ice machine or by the elevator or facing the busy street. So that is a huge perk, which, yeah, it has some infrastructure cost to set up, but on an ongoing basis, it's nothing.
And that I think that's actually the secret sauce. Figuring out that playing room roulette when you got to the check-in desk was sort of an unnecessary thing in the experience. And if we just let people pick the inventory for themselves, they're going to feel way more satisfied with their choice.
We got it, Stuart? Or? Good. All right.
Thanks for the question.
Whew, okay. Anyone else?
Hi there. My name is Nancy. I work for the Global Business Travel Association, otherwise known as GBTA. And it's interesting because I'm hearing different comments from each of you. I feel they're coming from business travel experiences when you're talking about Hilton hotels and you're talking about Porter Airlines. And with GBTA, our research has told us that $40.1 billion in Canada is spent on business travel annually. It's a huge contributor to the Canadian economy. So there's two different types of loyalty when you look at consumer behavior. There's leisure travel consumer behavior, and there's business travel consumer behavior, right? So there's a very different approach when you're dealing with business travel. And from my perspective, hearing you, and I certainly think there's tremendous opportunity when it comes to loyalty and business travel programs, and we're hearing this time and time again from our members and our audience, about shifting share and compliance, because one of the most loyal types of travelers are business travelers. They work for a company, they have to stay within their corporate travel programs, they stay at certain hotel brands, they fly certain airlines. They're very loyal because they need their job, and their company tells them they have to use these brands. But then we focus on traveler centricity, so the what's in it for me, right? So as a business traveler, what's in it for me is I need to choose between A airline and B airline. Those are my two choices. Or A airline or A hotel or B hotel, right? So how do you deal with business travel decision-making process within the loyalty concept? Because there is a huge opportunity to shift share and increase compliance to a brand within business travelers.
Thank you. Who'd like it?
One of the really cool ways that we've adapted to this concept at Hotel Tonight is obviously with something like HT Perks. You can use this discount whether you're traveling for business or whether you're traveling for leisure. One of the other really cool features that we have that not a lot of people know about is that you can actually save your perks for later. So if which is something I do, so I travel a lot for work. If I'm using my essentially the discount you would get being a perks user, I can actually store, say, that value of $50 into my account because I know I'm gonna expense this trip anyways, and I can actually use that $50 for when I travel for leisure. So it's actually a win-win when it comes to business and leisure, and that's been one of the most seamless integrations that we've had to get people to not only use us in the business, to be loyal in the business travel segment, but then also to translate that to when they travel for leisure.
Yeah, you're right. The business traveler is extremely savvy. They've got established preferences. They have their favorites and their go-tos, and they're a tough crowd to win over, but they're an incredibly valuable crowd to win over. So I think it goes back to really making sure that you understand what they value and what they want, and that your program delivers to that.
I think that the whole hotel industry is trying to contend with this, and massive consolidation in order to muscle down the commissions that go to OTAs and other bodies that are in the midst of that sort of travel booking. I think it's going to be an interesting couple few years to see how some of that stuff plays out.
So I experienced this recently, and I had one of the worst experiences with an airline that I shall not name. But I think it comes down to we also have to get to a point where there's flexibility, right? There's ability, there's like the shell of the program, and then kind of how individuals can work within that. An example being, I had to fly to Miami for work. I'm a and I had a meeting, so I had to change the flight. And so the feedback was, there's a $200 change fee, and then there's, the difference between the cost of your flight and the return flight was more than the actual flight. I asked how that was possible, and they said, it just is. And so from an experience, like the problem is that they're working in such a confined kind of box and not being able to kind of operate within it. I think more discussion like this, but I think also creating some flexibility when it comes to, will go a long way with respect to loyalty, especially for the business travel.
Is that going to change who you book with next time?
No comment. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, because for me, when it comes to business travel, it most of the times is I got to get in, I got to get out, and it's who's got the most convenient from a timing perspective, and then given that we're a startup, also from a cost perspective. That kind of stuff I'll manage. That wasn't great because it's a cost thing. So maybe yes, but from an experience, I'm hard to deal with on that side, because it's, for me right now, it's about the numbers and the efficiency of it.
That's actually a very interesting component to this discussion as well, which is when we are super loyal, how many times do we give them a pass, right? It sounds like you may have given them a pass. I mean, I have given, United has disappointed me many times, but I'll still book with them. And at some point, I wonder if it'll get so bad that I will switch carriers, but that's just a very interesting idea of when you become so loyal of a booker, how many times do you just say, oh, shit happens, or how many times are you actually going to change your behavior?
There's a study that looks at how much it would cost to shift market share for a hotel booking. And I'm guessing that this is likely a leisure travel study as opposed to business travel, but the answer was $2.
All right. Okay. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have for Q&A. But yeah, big round of applause to our panel.